I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. Billy, we talk about woodland owners things all the time, from forest health to wildlife to, you name it, all those in between trees. But sometimes I think we need to explain a little further on what we're talking about. And that's exactly what we're going to do today.
Yeah, so no, I'm so excited to be with everyone today, and we're so excited to have our guests on here in a few minutes. And we got Miss Franny Preston on. She's going to be talking about really what makes invasive plants invasive, right? So really excited about her presence. And that, again, Renee, that is something that we maybe gloss over sometimes. We talk about how to identify it, maybe, and perhaps how to control it and some of that type stuff. But really, what kind of is driving it being invasive? So excited to have Franny. She's also going to be talking about some upcoming trainings that she has that are geared toward trying to help educate, kind of train the trainers, if you will, about some invasive plants and how to deal with some of that. So really excited to have Franny. If you all are with us on Zoom, please use the chat function to interact with Franny or us, and we'll be glad to interact with you that way. And if you're on YouTube, hit us up via email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can respond that way. And as always, Renee, we have fromthewoodstoday.com, where folks can chime in and let us know if they want to see something down the road. So I'm glad to have everybody with us. Glad to be with you today on this kind of overcast day after a really big storm day across Kentucky yesterday. So hopefully everybody survived okay with no big whammies.
I was really glad, that we had that severe weather segment last week, because this week we actually experienced it yesterday. I know there's a lot of trees down in Lexington, and it was pretty bad in Lexington here. I mean, we were downstairs in the basement yesterday morning, so be weather aware at all times at this point during the year.
Yeah, no doubt. When UK councils classes and and work, it's kind of a big deal, and it certainly was here. So again, hopefully everybody managed the best they could then. But I guess let's not wait any longer and bring Franny.
Let's get Franny. You can turn your camera on, and you are going to help us weed out the words, I hear.
Hopefully I can, yeah. So again, thank you for the introduction, but my name is Franny Preston. I'm the Invasive Species Outreach Coordinator here at UK. So it's a good time for me to talk about invasive plants and what they actually are. As you said, we talk about them all the time and how to identify them and how to manage them, but there's a lot of different terms that are used. And so it's good that we know what we're talking about, no matter who we are, if we're the ones managing them, or if we're just telling our neighbor they need to get them out of their yard. Pulled up right there. All right, so right now I want you to think of what are some words that come to mind when you think about invasive plants. When you think about the definition of an invasive plant, think of maybe 3 words that come to mind. You can write them down or just keep them in your head and see if these words change definitions or maybe get more defined during this presentation. And we're going to talk about 3 main topics today. For one, we're going to start out with defining the big 3: native, non-native, and invasive. We're also going to talk about what makes a weed, because that can be a really confusing topic, but it's important to know about. And then we're going to talk about why it even matters what words we use when we're talking about invasive species. All right, so I'll go ahead and start out by defining what native plants are. A native plant is a plant that is part of the balance of nature that has developed over hundreds or thousands of years in a particular region or ecosystem. So 2 things to remember from that definition: a native plant is originally from the area, and it has its niche, which it means it has its role in the ecosystem. I have here pictured buttonbush, which is one of my favorite native plants. Likes to grow along waterways. Pollinators love it. Waterfowl loves it as well. And it's native, so it grows the way it's supposed to. It interacts with its pollinators and wildlife the way it's supposed to, and it interacts with the plants around it the way it's supposed to. Now, the opposite of native plants are non-native plants. And non-native species are organisms that do not occur naturally in an area, but they are introduced as the result of deliberate or accidental human activities. 2 things to remember about non-native plants: they are not originally from the area, but they're not necessarily bad. I have pictured some tulips and some pansies. And these are both some garden species that they're not native to Kentucky. They're not native to the United States, but they look beautiful in our gardens. I really like to see them in the spring, and they're not necessarily causing any harm. They don't have their role in the ecosystem. They're not interacting with pollinators and wildlife the way they would in their native range, but they're not necessarily causing any harm. Now, there are non-native plants that are causing harms. And we're just talking about plants in this presentation, but these definitions also apply to animals or fungi or pretty much any other organism. So an invasive species is an introduced non-native organism that can be a disease, parasite, plant, or animal that begins to spread or expand its range from the site of its original introduction, and that has the potential to cause harm to the environment, the economy, or to human health. That was a pretty lengthy definition, but for invasive plants, there's two things to remember. One, they are non-native. That's the key. And two, they are causing harm. So I have here pictured Lespedeza. And if you live near a field, you probably see a lot of this invasive plant, and you'll notice that it just takes over the area. All right, so now that we've talked about the definitions of native, non-native, and invasive, and remember, invasive plants are non-native and they're causing harm, let's talk about what is a weed. And this is a bit of a tricky question. The answer to what is a weed is it's complicated. I like to think about it as square rectangle comparison. So all invasive plants are weeds, but not all weeds are invasive plants. So what exactly does that mean? Well, what is a weed? It is unwanted, it's undesirable, and it's simply a plant out of place. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, that sounds pretty subjective, and it is. I have here pictured a couple of native weeds, butterfly weed and common milkweed. And these are both native species, so they have their role in the ecosystem. They're supposed to be there. They're originally from that area. But you can even see in their name that some people consider them weeds because of their growth habit. So you might want them in your garden because you might have a pollinator garden and you're trying to attract some bees and butterflies, but other people might not want them in their garden and they might think of them as a weed and they want to remove them, and that's okay. If you're a podcast listener, this slide's going to be a little bit confusing, but one of the funny examples of just how tricky this conversation can be is knotweed. So knotweed, K-N-O-T, weed, is a weed because it is an invasive plant. It grows along riparian areas, and like its name suggests, it forms really dense tangles. However, it's a little bit confusing when you're having conversations out loud about knotweed because it is a weed, but its name suggests otherwise. It reminded me of this funny scene from Winnie the Pooh, so I like to bring that up. All right, so you might be thinking, why does it even matter? Why does it matter that I am calling this plant invasive, but I'm not calling this plant invasive and I'm calling it a weed? Well, there's a few different reasons why. One of which is there's a lot of different people who are part of invasive plant conversations. This goes from people who just have a garden in their backyard and they are talking about the plants, or they're trying to figure out what plants to put there and not put there. It's a conversation that includes scientists who are researching these invasive plants and land managers who are taking care of these plants in natural areas. And it's important that we all use a common language. We've got some solidified terms to use. That way we all know what everyone else is talking about. Along with that, some terms, they can cause confusion, they can cause illusion, and they can cause exclusion, worst of all. So you might have heard some terms in the past used to describe invasive species, some of which include alien, indigenous, non-indigenous. These kinds of words, they can actually create xenophobic feelings, and so we want to kind of avoid them. We want to make sure we're separating political conversations and conversations about people from conversations about invasive plants. So we're trying to get rid of using words like alien. Another term that people use a lot is exotic when they're describing invasive plants. And this one can kind of be a confusing term as well, because a lot of people hear the word exotic and they might think of the pet trade. So they might think of an exotic animal, an exotic fish that they want to have as a pet because it's cool and unique and it's from another area. And while some of these invasive plants were originally brought here because they are cool and unique, we don't want people to have positive feelings towards them, and the word exotic can actually create positive feelings towards these plants. And some of the terms that people use are just confusing. So the term native invasive is an oxymoron, because if you'll remember, the term invasive, they have to be non-native, they have to be causing harm. So when you say it's a native invasive, it's contradicting itself. So like we talked about, you can use the word weed instead of that, and we'll talk about another term later to use instead of native invasive. If you want to take a picture of this slide, you can. We talked about the first few, and we're going to go through a few more different definitions of terms that you can use when you're talking about invasive plants. All right, so an introduced species is a species that is brought to a new geographic area intentionally or unintentionally by humans, similar to non-native. Now, introduced in the US, we typically consider a plant introduced if it was brought here post-European settlement. This does have some nuances to it because obviously there were people living here and moving plants around before the Europeans got here. But for the timeline of invasive plants, that's typically what we're talking about when we say it's an introduced species. Now, globally, with places that are a little bit more connected, this can be a little bit trickier to determine where a plant is originally from. But I learned recently that people actually will take the plant's DNA to figure out what it's related to and where it's from. All right, so a nuisance species is similar to a weed, so you can use this as well instead of native invasive. So a nuisance species is an individual or group of individuals of a species that causes management issues or property damage, presents a threat to public safety, or simply is an annoyance. Now, this can apply to both native and non-native species. I've got a couple of examples of species that can be considered nuisance species right here. So we have a native trumpet creeper vine. Hummingbirds love it. It grows really nice on trellises. And a lot of people might plant this in their garden or let it grow in their garden because they enjoy it. They think it's beautiful. They like the pollinators that it attracts. But other people might see this and they think, oh, I don't like how that looks. I get annoyed when it grows in my garden like that. It's causing problems for me. And so they could consider that a nuisance species. Now, the same goes for invasive species, such as English ivy. And you look at this picture and you notice that English ivy is also a vine. Again, it's invasive, so it's non-native, and it will strangle trees. It will grow messily all over your garden when left unchecked. So it is also considered a nuisance species. And range change is a pretty interesting topic that's coming about a little bit more. And it means the circumstance of a species' current or existing range growing, shrinking, or shifting over time. And this change can happen to native and non-native species with or without human assistance. So we'll go more specifically into this. All right, so range changes can happen again to native plants. And most people will consider a plant native even if they're moving on their own due to climate change. And with or without human assistance, that can sometimes be a little bit difficult to determine. Just wanted to throw that in there as well. But range change is happening again with both native and non-native species, including invasive species such as kudzu. So I've got this map from EdMaps, which is a reporting platform that shows the distribution and information about invasive species. And if you look at the map right there, you can see the light purple is where kudzu has already been reported in the state. And then the orange is where it is predicted to be between 2040 and 2060 due to things like disturbance and climate change. So unfortunately, it's predicted to expand across the whole state. Now, why does it matter that we can predict where these plants are going to change their range? Well, it can help with management decisions, because if we know that, okay, maybe this, as the climate warms or as more disturbance happens, this species is actually going to shrink its range. Maybe we don't need to focus on it as much, and we can prioritize another species. Alternately, if we know that a plant is likely to become invasive in an area, let's say you're in northern Kentucky, you're managing a natural area, and you see kudzu coming in, you know to get rid of it quickly before it becomes invasive in that area as well. And for a lot of this presentation, I used this journal article it was put out by Clemson, and it's really helpful if you want to do some more reading on this topic. If you are part of a group that is educating or managing invasive species, I highly recommend reading this. It really helped me kind of, again, weed out those different words and know why I should or shouldn't use different terms when talking about them. And finally, I just wanted to mention, when we are having conversations about invasive species, it can be really hard to stay positive, because it is such a drastic, they're having such drastic impacts on our ecosystems. But when we can stay positive, it helps when we teach other people about them. That way they don't just feel hopeless and not want to do anything. So if we can use terms such as restoration versus simply eradication, or promoting biodiversity versus just killing invasives, it can really help. And if you have any personal success stories that you've had with getting rid of a certain species in your backyard or the area you manage, it's really helpful to share those with people too. And if you're looking for some ideas, the National Park Service actually has some invasive species success stories on a website, which is really fun to look at, especially when you're feeling a little doom and gloom about them. Okay, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask now. I'm going to pull up a flyer real quick though. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more about invasive plants, specifically how to teach others about them, and create your own volunteer groups, or maybe start invasive plant conversations in these volunteer groups, we've got a couple of invasive plant education training workshops left. The one in Fayette County has already passed. It was a couple of weeks ago. Thank you if you're on today and you attended that. It went really well. But if you are in Northern Kentucky or Western Kentucky, we've got a workshop left in Boone County and also McCracken County as well. So you can scan that QR code right there. I've also got my email down there, but I'll put that in the chat if anyone had any questions about it. All right, so thank you all for learning about invasive plants today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that presentation. We greatly appreciate it. And, we have specific questions about certain types of invasives. And so I didn't know if you'd be able to talk about those as well, like autumn olive and how to deal with that, that they're trying to battle, how to get rid of it, what kind of methods are used, and that kind of thing. They have several woodland acres with large groves of it. So do you have any suggestions for that?
So I know with big, large groves of autumn olive, it's going to be a combination of both physical and chemical management that you're going to want to use for that. If you want, I'll put my email in the chat, and if you send me an email, I can send you some resources on specifics with those. That would probably work best.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say, Franny, along those lines, if you are a landowner and you're dealing with these invasive plants and you're not working with a natural resource professional, I encourage you to really look into that, right? We have foresters that are available to work with woodland owners here in the state, as well as private lands biologists with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources that can help woodland owners, as well as NRCS field staff that are spread out across the state. So, and your county extension office agents are usually pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, or they can quickly find the information to try to help you with that. So I just wanted to kind of, if you're not working with somebody and you're trying to tackle these things on your own, please educate yourself about what you're dealing with, right? Franny, back to, well, we need to know what we're dealing with a little bit too, right? So you're treating it right. And as Franny mentioned, with autumn olive, I mean, it's one we can control, even though it is a booger to deal with. You just want to go about it the right way, right? We want to make sure you're saving time and money wherever you're doing or whatever you're doing, and you're getting your work done as efficiently as possible. So again, working with a professional, if you're not already, can go a long way in your land management efforts. For what
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Billy.
Yep. And
So-
there's money sorry, Renee. There is a funding available to support some of this work too through NRCS. They have a program called EQIP, the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and some of the practices in that are really targeted toward invasive plants and invasive species, right? And they have practice sheets on what to do and when to do these treatments and stuff like that. So all that stuff's pretty easily discoverable. But again, work with a professional, get some help on your own land. All right, sorry, Renee.
No, you're totally fine. We did have a question about someone asking if you could share herbicide treatments so they can help control them. But are all herbicides for all invasives? I didn't think so. So there's different ones. So you have to know what you have first in order to control it. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. So
Yep.
identifying it would be the first step, like you said. There's some really great apps that you can even use for citizen science to help you identify them. One of which is called iNaturalist. You can in real time just go take a picture of the plant you have if you don't know what it is, and people will help you identify it. I use it all the time. So the first step is identifying it. And then again, thankfully, we've got this wonderful thing called Google, and I like to Google things if I'm not sure how to control them. UK has got a lot of really great resources with specifics about management for different species, particularly in the Kentucky Woodlands magazine.
Yes.
So that's a really great resource. But again, if you have specifics, I've got my email right there, and you can email me and I'll find some resources for you as well.
And I would say, Franny, I just dropped in the Missouri Department of Conservation they have a nice webpage that lists a lot of the common same invasive plants we have here. And I just dropped that link in the chat pod for folks. And you can find your invasive of choice and then figure out how to treat it. But again, work with a professional. Make sure, you want to be strategic in this, right? This is it's a repeated, often practice that you're going to have to do time after time, at least for a few years. So making sure you're going about it the right way can save you a lot of frustration. It really can.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Franny, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Yes, as always. Good job, Franny. Thank you.
All right. So we are going to move on. Billy, we have kind of alluded to this in a couple of shows, and we've never touched on it. So I thought today would be a great day to touch on that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pull up our website.
Yeah. This is a brand new website, folks, that Renee and others have been really busy working on for a while, and we just recently debuted it.
We did. So if you go to ukforestry.org, you will come to this page. This is the extension page, which is where we work out of, is extension. And the forestry department has other sections as well. All these sections here are part of the forestry department. But as far as what I'm over in the website was these sections here. So Billy and I are just going to touch a little bit on where you can find things and what you might need as a woodland owner, and some resources that we might have on here to help you. So first of all, again, ukforestry.org will bring you to this main page. On this main page, there's a lot of information because, as you know, like from the woods today, every topic that we have, a lot of those folks are forestry extension folks that we have on, or they have some kind of knowledge about that. And that's the reason why we've had them on the show. So you can go we have woodland owners. I'm just giving you a variety of topics here. Storm damage, which might come in helpful for like last night, forest health, and then kind of programs that we have going on, wildlife, and you can see that there's different wildlife things here. Woodland threats with the new spotted lanternfly, and EAB and all of that. And then we have specific programs for like wood industry, loggers, youth, that kind of thing. And the Kentucky Woodlands magazine that you were talking about, Billy, right there is a link for that. So Also, anytime you want to From the Woods Today topic, you can kind of go through here and look to see what we have going on. So our website has a ton of information. And so I'm just going to go over a little bit of this, but you all are welcome just to dive in and find any, topic that you might have here. Also, since we have moved it all over, sometimes the links are broken. And obviously our website, I mean, it took me like almost 6 months, maybe longer, to create this.
What a significant effort, Renee.
It was a significant effort. And obviously when you're on the website that no one can see but me, the link works.
Of course, right? Yeah.
In that process, you move it over and the link doesn't work. So if you ever find a link like that, please
let us know.
And let us know, because the last thing I want is for a link not to work. So let's move on to a little section that's near and dear to Billy's heart. As you can see, Billy's standing right there, and that would be woodland owner topics. So can you see that, Billy?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So, we have several, and there are a whole bunch more, obviously, that's on here. But you can see there's managing your woodlands, forest health, if you have timber, and then programs. And we're going to kind of touch on a little bit of each of these, and Billy can kind of chime in on anything he'd like to talk about. So let's just kind of dive into the caring for managing your woodlands. Right here is a show that we did on why we manage our forest. Dr. Jacob Mueller put that on. And so any kind of show that I can do, pull a segment out that would help you all, I'm putting that in on these different sections, and we're actually pulling it out so you don't have to watch the whole hour-long show. It's in that little 15 to 25 minute segment right here. So you can just, click on it from there. I've tried to, anytime we have publications that relate to that, you'll see this little blue box that has just those publications. So that should be able to help you. And then we have several different topics, like you just keep on diving down and getting deeper into it. So for instance, let's just go to management plans, Billy. So here we go. Woodland management plan tells you what it is, why we have one. And then, just a little bit of why you should have one. And Billy, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit.
No, yeah, I help at least give you the content for this. No, Renee, I think you've done such an amazing job with this website, and we want people to use it, right? Because we want you to have the right information. And back to what we were talking to with Franny a few minutes ago, you all were not trained as foresters, most of you, or wildlife biologists. Yes, you're passionate about your woodlands and you care about our natural resources, but we want you to have the right information. We want you to be as efficient in your work as you can. Woodland management can be laborious, it really can. So we want to try to save you as much pain as absolutely possible. So getting the right information at the right time is absolutely critical. So our website, I believe, does a really good job of that. We've got a lot of great links to outside partners as well, that you may be working with on certain things. But this one just goes over kind of some of the, and you can see there on the right, some of those resources of those people that can come out and develop a management plan for you. And when we talk about management plans and from a forestry standpoint, that's really kind of where we start. Because we could do so many different things to our woods, right? We could manage them for timber, we could manage them for wildlife or recreation or whatever you really are interested in. And all of those are good reasons to manage woodlands, right? But what you care about, the objectives that you have, the goals for your property are going to dictate what your natural resource professional is going to kind of recommend. So they're going to keep that in mind. So we really want you to kind of think about, if you don't have a management plan, to get one. Not only does it help focus your efforts and help you get on the same page with your natural resource professionals, but it is the first step in being able to access some of that financial assistance that's available to help you do some of this work. So we want you to kind of, take advantage of these resources that are available, get the good information that you need, and then follow up on them. And so this page is a good page. It goes over a lot of kind of the ins and outs of management plans, why you should have them, how to go about them, but also most importantly, we always try to get you something where you can kind of take that next step and reach out to some of those professionals that can help you. So that's a good good page for sure, Renee.
Good page to start.
Yeah.
All right. And then we go to Forest Health, which is kind of what we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely
And it has
correct.
a wealth of information on it. What is Forest Health? That's a video from Dr. Crocker. But then it tells you insects, invasives, diseases. Let's just talk about, since we were talking about invasives already. Here's an invasive. This is probably where I will put Franny's episode on what it is. But
Yes.
here, look here. If you have some of this,
Yep.
you can look and go, okay, it looks similar to that. Or maybe you use that iNaturalist,
Right.
you snap it and then go, okay, what I have is bush honeysuckle. Okay, I want to view bush honeysuckle. Here's a video on what bush honeysuckle is, how it's risked, how do I control it, and then here's an article on all the, and you can click on that from the magazine that Franny was talking about, and it will bring up an article. I don't want to do it because it's like a lot of different screens. But it'll tell you like the pesticide or the herbicides to use to fix, so you can get rid of each one of these invasive plants.
Yes, yeah. Dr. Crocker and the team, of which Franny's a big part of, have done really a great job on our Forest Health section of our website. So
you can see here all the different ones that we have. So, I know a lot of you were asking about treatment options and things like that. There's a lot of that information here on our website already about all of that. So if you just, take a look, and you can get to that for sure.
yeah, it's a really great resource.
Let me see. All right. So timber, Billy, if you want to talk about,
Sure. Yeah. One of the reasons that people own their property, even though it may not be the first thing they think of, is from a timber standpoint and revenue. And, you may not, if you're a woodland owner right now, you may think, I'm never going to cut my trees for timber. I have no desire to do so. And that's fine. You certainly do not have to. That's your right as a landowner to kind of do what you want with your property. But what I will say is that in the long term, almost all of our woodlands are going to be probably harvested or have been harvested at one point. If you look at Kentucky and you want to say, well, it's never been cut. Look how many trees we have. Well, we know that's not the case, right? It's been harvested several times, and almost all of our woodlands have been harvested several times at least. And we have very, very limited old growth forest in the state. And almost all of that, Renee, is kind of in places that were really hard to get to. They would have probably been logged if they could have accessed them, but they were just, for whatever reasons, they were in remote areas or just, too high up or whatever. That's really why a lot of those kind of still exist in the limited number they do. But managing timber is a long-term game. So it takes a long time to grow trees. We want to do it the right way. So again, getting that correct information at the appropriate time is absolutely critical to your success of not only what you're trying to do there, but your woodland overall. So if you're interested in managing timber, we've got a section on that. It kind of goes about that process. We also have some information about kind of timber sales and how to go about that type of work. If you ever run into timber theft or trespass, and I hope you never do, please know that we have resources available to kind of get you at least started in addressing that. That's something you'll most likely have to end up working with a consulting forester on, because they're one of the few people in the state that can kind of handle that and go to court on your behalf. So that's a really important thing. And then certainly tree ID. We do a lot with tree ID. Certainly Laurie Thomas has done a tremendous amount with our Common Trees of Kentucky and our Tree of the Week episodes. But knowing what tree you're dealing with is the first step. Like when we talked about managing invasive plants, you have to know what you're dealing with, because those plants are different, right? What works on them or what will make them more successful may not be applicable to other plants. So getting that ID down is really important. And then we've got a small section there on kind of measuring trees and doing that. So it's just a good place to kind of get a good foundation on some of the things you need to be thinking about when you're managing your timber. But really, Renee, there's no substitute for working with a natural resource professional like a forester out there on your property with you, walking that ground with you, being there to address your questions. And then you all are kind of in a partnership in managing that woodland long term. So take advantage of that, please.
Definitely. And, everyone always wants to know what kind of programs we have going on.
Certainly, yeah. We do this every week. Yes. I mean, we've got a program every week called From the Woods Today, right? That we bring to you all, and we try to archive. But we also do a lot of other programming. Some of this we put on ourselves. Some of it we partner with other organizations, either in the state or regionally, depending on what it is. One that's near and dear to my heart is the Woodland Owner Short Course. This is a program we've been doing since 2004, which that's a long time ago, right? We're 21 years in now, so that's a good run. But what this program does is it brings together landowners and natural resource professionals in a very kind of instructional, but also an inspirational way. So we try to highlight some of the many aspects of woodland management, wildlife management, forest health management, managing water on your woodlands, all of those things that are kind of really important, or maybe you're interested in carbon programs. We try to give you the base information that you need, and we do that through online sessions. So the way the Woodland Owner Short Course works is we have a series of online sessions, and we typically do these in the evening to try to make them more accessible for those who are working. But you can always watch the recordings of them if you register for the program. And you'll have access to some of our team members' presentations and content on various aspects of forest management. And then we follow those up with field visits. And this year we're going to have 2 different field sessions to kind of drive home that content that we see. And this is going to be your chance to really work with and meet some of the natural resource professionals that you'll have access to in your area. So please take advantage of that. We're working on finalizing the dates for this. So hopefully within a few weeks, we'll have that registration up and coming. I will tell you that the online sessions are going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays in June. And then the field sessions, we do have those locked down. The first one's going to be July 13th at Robinson Forest. And the second one's going to be on August 10th at Roundstone Native Seed, which is a really important partner when it comes to establishing a lot of our native plants in Kentucky. So we're really excited about both of those field sessions. But you can, if those don't work for you, you can still participate in the online session. So we're going to have an online only registration option. And we do give a little discount if you come to the field sessions if you're a couple, because we really want to encourage the whole family to be engaged in woodland management.
Right, definitely. So like I said, there's we could spend a whole month talking about everything on this website. Don't worry, we're not. But there's something for everybody. It's kind of what Billy and I are trying to get at. So, go to our website and try to figure out, try to just kind of peruse it and see what you might want to see about. Now, I am going to go over a couple more things, so bear with me. So here, if you hover over this extension, you will see those 2 main things that we were talking about, along with wildlife and youth in the wood industry. But you'll also see From the Woods Today, and you'll see a video that we've done. And here you can always watch. When I always say go to fromthewoodstoday.com, that you will end up here. Even though it's on our website, this is linked to this page. And here's that little survey we're always talking about, hey, tell us what you see, let us know your comments, whatever. And then obviously, and then here, when we're talking about binge watching, there you go. That's how you can binge watch. Just go to our YouTube channel. But this gives it a breakdown, a little bit about what the shows were about, what we talked about, and you can scroll for days if you want to about all of these shows that are going that we've seen. And then down here you can see what's going on for the next month. But if you view all episodes, then you can see everything we've done in the past. So. So it's really neat to be able to look through this, Billy, to be quite honest, and just see everything that we've talked about. I really enjoy it, but From the Woods stays near and dear to my heart, so that's why.
Yes, it is a really cool. Yes, it's great. Yeah, check it out, folks. Really, and share it with others. Let them know about it.
So the other section that I want to talk about real briefly is woods and wildlife health. So for instance, you can see this drop down menu, and it's just, I can't put everything on there. Otherwise we'd have a drop down, that you'd be scrolling on, but here are some resources. Forestry videos is some of the videos from us that we've done, and any kind of publication that you might need. There's also our econ report here, any kind of newsletter, e-newsletters you're wanting, and tree identification, and then webinars. And then From the Woods Today obviously is there as well. But
Is the read?
I was thinking about the publications, and that, we have them listed by topic. So I kind of thought that, if somebody had an issue where they might need something specific, they could go, of course, this will take you to all of our publications page. And if you scroll down, you'll see basically all of them in one spot, which can be a little overwhelming. There is a lot, you're right. But say, for instance, you wanted, I don't know, publications on forest health. Let's do that. I know I don't think there's many, but there's a few. So then I try to break those down by bugs, plants, and just forest health in general. So the further you take a dive into our website, the more compact and condensed it gets. So you may have to do a couple of clicks in order to keep it going, but at least you should be able to find what you're looking for. Anything?
Yeah, I was going to say, Renee, I just put in, somebody had a question about finding some information about our American plum here, and I put that link to our common tree videos there. So I didn't know if you might want to show them that, where that's at as well. And those are the segments where Laurie has done a video segment on those and kind of goes over all aspects of the plant right there. Thank you. And you scroll down and you can see the big list that we have of all of these, and you'll see the second one on the far left column is American plum. So check that out. We will be converting some of these into fact sheets. It's an ongoing progress, so you'll be able to have kind of a print version as well as some of that information. But for now, you can access that information from there.
Yeah. Eventually what I want to do is, and you can see how many trees we have. So I want a page for each one of these. And so, cause we'll have a video, we'll have a fact sheet, we'll have information about it. And so we're working on it, but it does take time. So please bear with us. Eventually we will get there. But if you kind of have a clue about what you're looking for, you might be able to click on one of these and do that. We had examples on each one of them, and I might try to do that. Like a video popped up, but then when people that don't have fast internet, it would drag them down. Yeah, it would drag it down. So what I might try to do is do that little thumbnail like this for each. You can at least kind of get a picture of what you're trying to do, and that won't drag it down as much. But the last thing I want to touch on is, wildlife, and we have this wildlife damage page. And so if there's you have deer damage, vole damage, and we're going to come up with, Dr. Matt Springer is coming up with a whole bunch more wildlife damage areas. So as far as, I think we're the next one, we have skunks and otters and things like that we're working on. And so this page is going to be added to quite a bit, but I just wanted you all to know that it was even here. And we do have other things on wildlife. If you just click here for wildlife, you can see that as well. That one was just a wildlife damage, but here's just wildlife in general. Talks about the damage. That's where we just was. Pigs, ear diseases. If you have any snakes you want to ID, you can click on that and it'll take you eventually to a snake ID site. So I'm trying to put all this stuff together so it's useful for you all to be able to use it. But, I was like, if you don't know it's not there, it's there, you won't use it. So that's why we wanted to bring this to your all's attention and just let you know. Billy, anything else we need to talk about before I stop share on this?
Well, no, Renee, I just wanted to brag on you. I think you've done such a great job. And we, our team works so hard to try to provide content for folks across the state, but you do such a good job of making it accessible and easy to find. And I can't thank you enough for all the work that you do. But folks, really check it out. Like Renee said, there's probably answers to whatever you're looking for if it deals with forestry and wildlife or natural resources here in Kentucky. Or again, if we don't have it, we probably got links to partners that have that information and can help you. We try to do as much as we can, but we certainly can't do everything. So sometimes we have to lean on others for some content as appropriate. But I would encourage you all, if there's stuff that you're not finding on our website that you think might be useful, you may not be alone. You may have other people may be thinking that same thing. So don't hesitate to let us know that as well. And we can discuss that with our team and see if we can try to address that as well. Again, we want to be as responsive to you all as possible. So, but you got to let us know.
Yeah, yeah, the same wavelength brain thing that I was thinking, because I put my email in the chat. That email will come to me. So if you, like Billy said, if you have anything you want to see on our website that would touch forestry, forests, trees, whatever that we kind of just talked about that you see that's not on our website, or maybe you just can't find it on our website, because there is a lot of information that I could make it more accessible to you all, just let me know. So you shoot me an email and say, hey, I can't find this. And it may be on our website, and I'll shoot you the link, and then I'll make it better so that you can find it. But if not, and it's something that we need to do, maybe it's just something we overlooked.
Yeah, it very well could be. Or it may be something that really is kind of better handled by a partner or another entity. And if that's the case, we can make links available to try to help people get the information they need.
Right, definitely. All right. Oh, another thing, since I would love it if you all could, like, if you are on Zoom and when you sign into Zoom, you would put your email address in. I can pull that, and then you will get show reminders about what's coming up on the shows. A lot of you don't put your email address in, and so I can't, the only other way to do that is make you register for Zoom, and I don't want you to have to do that. I want to just leave it open. But if you will put your emails, thank you, Brandy, appreciate it. If you will put your emails in when you first, either in this chat pod or when you first log in every week, that will be definitely helpful. And that way I can, when I pull it occasionally and put it in our constant contact for you all to get emails, that way you will get show reminders. If you are not getting a show reminder, definitely put that in this email. And I will definitely get you on that show, because I do a show reminder, whether you all know it or not. I do a show reminder every week. So, and now I've started, I've got a student, and so she has started giving us where she can give me monthly things. So on the bottom, it'll tell you what every show is going to be for that month. So that was something that you'd probably really be interested in, to be able to find that.
It looks like you've got a lot of people take you up on that, Renee. So we'll have to mine the chat pod here. I would say too, if you only watch on YouTube or you're a podcaster, then shoot us an email at forestry.extension@uky.edu, and we can get you on that reminder list as well.
Definitely. Well, that is our show for today. We greatly appreciate you joining us. We will stay on for a little bit after we've stopped the recording and everything, just so if people are wanting to keep putting their emails in, they can. And we greatly appreciate you joining us every week at 11 o'clock. Until then, take care.
Bye.
From the woods today.